Have you ever played Minecraft just to wander? Just to travel and see the majesty of the unique world laid out in front of you? A unique world laid out for you. A world with great hills and mountains just begging for you to peek across and see the other side. A world full of settlements built in the strangest yet oddly charming configurations. A world of seas stretching on for so long that they might as well go on forever. A world with lush jungles and snow-covered tundras, and treeless deserts and tree-filled forests, all brimming with their own personalities, hazards, and wonders. A world that in all likelihood had never been seen, nor explored, nor cherished by anyone before you did. And a world whose unique sights, beauties, discoveries, should you choose to keep them to yourself, will in all likelihood never be experienced by another soul in the whole history of our universe. Well, today we're not doing that. In fact, we're basically doing the exact opposite. For today, we're seeing just how successful we can be in Minecraft without so much as laying a foot on the surface, let alone taking in its sights and exploring its vast biomes. Today, my friends, we are asking and answering the question, is it possible to beat Minecraft without going above ground? So, how exactly are our rules going to work? How do you define above ground exactly? Is it if the sun is shining directly down on you? Or perhaps it's if you're above whatever level topsoil, like dirt or sand or whatever the case may be, is generating at. The rule we're using here is simple and universal. As soon as we spawn into the game, we must dig down below the coordinate of Y61. And after that moment, while we're in the overworld, we must remain below Y61 and hopefully get to the end and defeat the dragon without ever having to violate that rule. I should note that I'm not applying this rule to the Nether or End, because in my opinion, neither can really be said to have an above and below ground. Now, as for the version of Minecraft we'll be playing on this time, it'll be, as of right now, the most recent version of Minecraft. Version 1.14.4. The seed for the world I'm playing on was generated randomly and will be in the description and likely on screen right now. And the parameters of the world is as follows. World type default, generate structures on, bonus chests off, and cheats off. Now let's start playing. So of course the first thing we do is what we are obligated to do, and that is to immediately dig down a few blocks to get to Y60. Now that we're in compliance with the rules, let's figure out what steps exactly we need to achieve to complete our challenge. The way I see it, there are a few main things we need to get or do in order to succeed. Firstly, we need to acquire the basics. What I mean by that is we need to find a way to get the basic foundational materials which we'll need to survive and get some of the more difficult to acquire materials. Included in this would be renewable wood, renewable food, iron, coal, and stone. Without those materials, the rest of the things on this list will be nearly impossible to achieve. Secondly, we are going to need a lot of arrows. I'd say probably a few stacks at least. That's going to mean either killing a lot of skeletons or finding some way to get feathers while underground. Thirdly, we need blaze rods. This will of course mean going to the Nether. So theoretically, the rules of this challenge shouldn't change this step too much, but it's still a major and important milestone nonetheless. Fourthly, we'll need to find a way to acquire a lot of ender pearls. Usually wandering around in a desert or something is a decent way to find endermen and get their pearls. We of course can't do that, so hopefully caves are a decent place to find endermen. And once all those major steps have been completed, all that will remain is finding the stronghold and fighting the end dragon, which should hopefully be no problem. But I guess we'll see. Step 1. The basics. It might at first glance seem like it'll be tough to get wood without going above ground. Luckily for us, our staying below ground is staying below Y61, which still leaves us close enough to the surface to be able to reach the bottoms of trees in the forest. We can even destroy the lowest layer of leaves, which means we can dig essentially a trench around the forest, taking out the base of any tree we come across, break some of its leaves, and we've got wood, and eventually, a sapling. And with a sapling and the excavation of a large room, we've got renewable wood. With renewable wood, we can make tools like picks, which will let us start harvesting some of the other basics like stone, iron, and coal. As for food, we can acquire it in a similar way. We can reach the trees from our trenches, but we can also reach grass from our trenches, which means we can get wheat seeds. Now, all we need is a good place to plant them. Luckily, I managed to dig into a river which provided some very useful irrigation that I was able to use to plant my crops beside. This river also gave me access to sand, which I could then turn into glass, which I could then use as a skylight over my crops, while sealing off the rest of the roof in my trenches, for the purpose of safety, of course. I was also lucky enough to have a zombie drop a carrot fairly early in the game, which I planted as well. So yeah, I think that's the basics pretty well taken care of. Step 2. Arrows. The best way to fight the end dragon is with a bow and arrow. The bow shouldn't be a problem. We already have the wood we would need, and I highly doubt it's going to be that difficult to come across 3 pieces of string. The arrows are what really concern me. Now, there are 2 approaches we could take here. We'll need to either find a way to kill loads of skeletons, or find a way to farm chickens. Unfortunately, I don't have easy access to a skeleton spawner, so I guess we'll pursue the chicken route. Chickens, of course, generally spawn above ground, and while we can't go above ground, we can dig trenches, and hopefully we'll find one that way. Thus far, the chicken trenches have not been much of a success. On occasion I do hear chickens, but with little to no visual information, it's tough to actually intercept them. I even essentially strip-mined some areas that I was sure had chickens, but to no avail. Perhaps a change of tactics is in order. What about that river? If we could keep below the surface of it without drowning, then we would have at our disposal a much wider field of view of the surface, and with that wider field of view comes a greater likelihood to spot chickens. And we do actually have a way to avoid drowning. Doors, which create an air bubble when you place them underwater. How convenient. Now, this new tactic didn't make the chicken hunt easy, but eventually I spotted a chicken swimming across the river, and lured it with some seeds. I brought it to the bank of the river where I was able to lure it into a tunnel, which I then dug all the way back to my base, where I prepared a pen for my chicken. After that, it was a bit of AFK in the pen to get some eggs, which eventually produced a second chicken, and from there the population grew exponentially. So yeah, I'd say we have feathers covered now. We already tackled wood, so the sticks we need won't be a problem to acquire, and of course being underground I'm sure we'll run into plenty of gravel that we can harvest for flint. And that is the arrow problem officially under control. Step 3. Blaze rods. Blaze rods can be crushed into blaze powder, which can then in turn be crafted with an ender pearl to create an Eye of Ender. Those Eyes of Ender are essential for finding the Ender portal and literally required to activate it. So yeah, acquiring blaze rods is quite important. To get to the Nether where blazes reside, all we need is a couple of buckets, which we can craft from iron from exploring caves. One of those buckets is filled with water from a river, and the other is filled with lava we found deep below the surface of the earth. With these buckets, we form a nether portal, which we can then light and activate with a flint and steel. Again, something very easy for us to acquire at this point. From there, it's just a matter of finding a nether fortress, and of course, finding a nether fortress is just a matter of exploring the nether. I was able to find one after traveling about 800 blocks. I then proceeded to find a blaze spawner and set up probably the most inefficient blaze farm ever. Nevertheless, I managed to walk out of the Nether with a dozen blaze rods. Step 4. Ender Pearls. As previously mentioned, the other half to creating the essential eyes of Ender is Ender Pearls. These are, of course, acquired by killing Endermen. Normally, a decent place to find Endermen is in a big flat biome, like plains or deserts at night. They do, however, spawn in caves as well, if the conditions are right, but we probably are going to need somewhere in the realm of a dozen or so Ender Pearls, and I, for one, am not too excited about finding that many pearls in the wild. As such, we have but one logical course of action: the construction of an Enderman farm. A massive room to be dug out of the earth wherein Endermen will be spawned, be looked upon, and die. So let's not delay and get started on this. Well, that was a lot of mining. Unfortunately, Endermen are 3 blocks tall, so we're only about a third of the way done. Let's finish. Alright, with this Enderman farm at our disposal, and given enough time, we will get the Ender Pearls we need. Oh, and if you want the process to go faster, use a sword with looting. I did, and would certainly recommend it. Oh, and switching the difficulty to peaceful to get the mobs in the farm to despawn, thus making room for new spawns when you bring the difficulty back up, is also a great time saver. And that means all we have left to do is find a stronghold and fight the end dragon. We're practically done at this point. Or so I thought. As it turns out, locating a stronghold while remaining underground is a massive pain. For starters, just about every Eye of Ender you toss is going to fly into a wall and be lost forever. That by no means makes this impossible, but it does increase the amount of time we have to waste farming blazes and Endermen. Now, if our means of navigation, getting cast into oblivion, wasn't bad enough, the quality of our navigational aids certainly doesn't help. As it turns out, it's highly unlikely that you'll just so happen to be at a perfect cardinal direction or diagonal away from the stronghold. And trying to calculate and maintain any other angle for your tunnel is, in my opinion, a fool's errand. Speaking of which, tunnels. I sure hope you like digging them, because that's really the only way you'll make any progress at all towards the stronghold. Which is tedious, highly resource-intensive, boring, tedious, the sort of project that will annihilate what small stash of diamonds you've acquired up to this point, and also tedious. Allow me to put it this way. This tunnel takes about 25 minutes to navigate from beginning to end. That's just walking through it. I spent 15 Eyes of Ender for navigation during this construction. A construction that took 7.5 hours to complete, and that's with me being fortunate enough to have had enough diamonds to use diamond picks for the majority of the construction. I shudder to imagine what this undertaking would have been like without diamonds. Nevertheless, eventually I found the stronghold, and I do not think I have ever been happier to lay eyes on stone brick before. Unfortunately, the end portal required 10 Eyes of Ender, which left me exactly 1 blaze powder short. So after a quick trip to the Nether, it's time. Time to activate the portal, and... Ow! Forgot my golden apples at home. Darn. Let's see. 50-minute round trip, or go without. We'll just go without. Welcome to the end. I've arrived here with full iron armor, some water buckets, an iron sword, enchanted with sharpness 3, a bow enchanted with unbreaking, so basically an unenchanted bow, some cobblestone, and a whole lot of cooked chicken and arrows. This, of course, is not the best gear we could have possibly achieved in this challenge. There's no reason we couldn't have gotten a better bow or armor, but I think this should be enough, and honestly, I'm kind of impatient to get this fight over with, so please forgive me. As for the fight itself, it's a standard Ender Dragon fight. Break the crystals, shoot the dragon, and hopefully win. Just make sure you don't anger the Enderman, and have a plan ready for if you get launched into the stratosphere. It was hard fought, but in the end, my mid-tier equipped attempt was successful, thus proving that it is possible to beat Minecraft without going above ground. And what an interesting journey it was, from the trench digging and river walking in the early game to the Enderman farm and stronghold search in the late game. It's certainly an atypical route through Minecraft, but one that's possible, and I'd go a step further and say possible by anyone with enough patience and determination. So, if Minecraft gotten a bit stale for you as of late, this may be exactly what you need to spice things up. But before going off adding spice to Minecraft, why not add some spice to this video? I'm quite partial towards likes, comments, and subscriptions, so if you'd kindly lend me some of those, I'd be quite appreciative. Until next time though, I've been CMeeCraft, and I'll be looking into what we can make of the next challenge. Goodbye.